All right, and when you've rejoined us, if you could give us a thumbs up or turn your video back on just so we can see that folks have returned. The danger of starting with an outdoor thing. Some people don't want to come back. Great, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Okay, and you'll see in the chat that Drew has added the attendance doc. So if everyone could find that before I flood the chat with you giving us some feedback. And we'll put it in there again just in case it gets buried. But if everyone could just take a moment and write in the chat just something they noticed either around them or within themselves, or something that came out of that that brief 5 minutes, either near at a window or outside.
We have one message that was just sent to me saying pouring rain and the birds singing.
Yeah, and try to, I don't know if folks are able to do an everyone chat, I think. Oh, it looks like Drew, it looks like they're not able to chat to the whole group, just us privately.
I just changed that. Okay, perfect. It should be good now.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. I'm seeing a trend that involves our most recent emerging animals. Those who are still coming back, we're just throwing into the chat just a description of something you either observed outside or. So lots of cicada themes, and I have to stay outside for a couple minutes because I have a bus arriving, but hopefully you guys can't hear them. They sound very loud here too. Great, so hopefully that gave everyone a little reset to the work we're doing today. And Drew, if you could go ahead and throw in the chat now a link. This is a resource we created at FOSS for middle school. The idea of this document is it's something a teacher could send home as a homeschool connection with middle. It would also work very easily for high schoolers, but could easily be adopted also with your classroom. I've done essentially a sit spot project before with middle schoolers. We'd go out throughout the school year, and sometimes they just having them, the rules are basically sit at your spot, don't leave, and don't talk to anyone. And it was an extremely powerful entry point project throughout the year. So I highly recommend that. All right, back to you, Alana.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that great introduction, Joanna. That was a really fun activity. All right, so let's jump into the next part. So even though we only have a short time together today, this will be an interactive training. So you can choose to have your camera off, but we do want to hear from you either verbally or in the chat. We're here to learn from each other, share experiences, and discuss some of the topics that are being presented. So here you'll see on the screen some of the features that we're going to use during this training today. First off, we have breakout rooms. We'll have 3 different breakout rooms throughout the meeting for collaboration. We'll be using the Zoom chat to share ideas and thoughts. We'll use Google Earth for the school grounds evaluation activity, which we'll give you a brief tutorial on before sending you into breakout rooms. We're going to use Google Sheets for collaborative thinking. And then we'll have open discussion for times when I'll pull a comment out of the chat and ask you to elaborate, or I might ask for a volunteer to elaborate on a thought. We'll also use Zoom polls to get an understanding of where you are in the process of using the outdoors as a classroom, and Drew's going to launch those polls when we're ready for them. Okay, so this week we're going to be talking about evaluating your school grounds for learning by looking for features on the school grounds that may impact the site that you select for learning. You're also going to practice using this evaluation as an evaluation tool. And as you heard from Joanna Snyder earlier, is going to be a guest facilitator, and she's going to share her really awesome resources for taking learning outside throughout the whole presentation. As you may know, this is part 3 of a 5-part series that we'll continue to build on over the next week, and we'll continue to cover best practices and taking learning outside throughout. If you aren't able to attend each of the trainings, that's okay. They will all be recorded and available on the MAEOE website, which the link in the chat Drew just sent. Awesome. Okay. Now we're going to get to the poll. So this poll is going to ask you if you feel confident in evaluating your school grounds for outdoor learning space, and you'll have a few options for that. Drew, can you go ahead and launch the poll? And you'll just let us know how confident you feel in evaluating school grounds for learning spaces. Also, I don't think that I can see the poll, so when you share the results, Drew, actually, if you could read them out for us. Awesome.
Yeah, and the poll didn't pop up for me, so I don't know if that was.
Sarah, you didn't get the poll?
Yeah, it didn't pop up on my screen.
Okay, in that case, if you could just put in the chat if you feel confident about evaluating school grounds or not confident about evaluating school grounds.
Wait, what did you say? Are we supposed to be typing something in the chat?
Is anyone seeing the poll launched?
I used it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but
So, okay.
the one
so
I'm seeing is not, it's not the poll from this week. It's the poll from last week. It's not about evaluating school grounds.
Okay. In that case, instead of a poll, let's just respond in the chat. I'm going to put the question in the chat and then type in your answer, A or B. Give me 1 second. If you did see the poll and it was the same one, then feel free to answer on the poll. Either way is totally fine. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see that we're getting a lot of A's, but if people are still feeling like they're not confident, that's totally fine because this is only session 3 of 5. So for those of you who are confident in evaluating school grounds, that's great. And we hope that you'll share your experiences, your successes, and challenges with past evaluations. And then for those of you who are not sure about evaluating school grounds, we're glad that you're here today. And hopefully you'll gain some practical experience so that afterwards you can go out into your school grounds over the next couple of weeks and check out some of the man-made and natural features that will impact your learning spaces. So we'll work together today on gaining some confidence in those skills. Okay. So before we send you into groups for our breakout room activity, we're going to set the stage for why green school grounds are important and how they help us to achieve our goals of taking our students outside to learn. So we're going to dive deeper into 4 key elements. The first thing is that green school grounds help us to teach place-based understanding. So green schoolyards provide opportunities for students to tune into their surroundings and get hands-on experience with nature, while at the same time gaining a better understanding of their own neighborhoods. It also helps students mark seasons, recognize wildlife migration, and bring watershed education to life. The next thing that green school grounds help us to do is practice stewardship. So they give students the opportunity to identify site-based environmental issues and empowers them to take actions to improve the local environment and profoundly change the way that students understand their place in the world. Green school grounds also allow us to foster adventure, wonder, and health. They foster social, physical, and intellectual growth by providing setting for imagination, exploration, adventure, and wonder. Lastly, green school grounds engage the community. They teach ecological literacy, invigorate bodies, open and inspire young minds, and knit our communities more closely together in the process. So I'm just going to pause here because that was a lot of information, and either in the chat or feel free to shout out if you have any questions so far or any comments. All right, I'm not seeing anything yet, so we can keep going. But if you do have questions throughout, feel free to put them in the chat or just shout out. So green school grounds can also provide an ecological infrastructure, as green school grounds can be designed to manage stormwater planted with native and vegetation, provide shade for students in school buildings, host renewable energy systems, and they're designed using sustainable, natural, and recycled building materials. Green school grounds also provide an access to nature. They can provide every child in every city with high quality access to nearby nature where they can experience real world sensory experiences. It also provides a sense of place and community that is local to students and relevant to them. Green school grounds improve teaching and learning environments, and studies have shown that many children learn better with hands-on experiences. Outdoor teaching environments are also appreciated by both teachers and students. They have also been shown to reduce boredom, shift social leadership structures, and lead to fewer disciplinary problems. Lastly, green school grounds provide health and well-being, as a green school ground provides new learning setting and has shown to reduce blood pressure and help with relaxation among students and with teachers. Okay, we've gotten to the breakout room points. Before we start with this, again, let's just pause for any questions in case you want to talk about anything we just went over. Put it in the chat or feel free to shout out. Okay, not seeing anything yet, so we can keep going. So we're going to divide everyone into 3 breakout rooms in a few seconds. During the breakout time, you're going to work by yourself to use Google Earth and an assessment tool to evaluate your own school ground, so the school that you work at. And then one of us, either Joanna, Drew, or myself, will be in each breakout room to answer questions and kind of facilitate discussion. So after you complete the work on your own, we're going to have small group discussions sharing what you don't have the answer to, who may have the answer to the question that you're stumped on. We'll do some problem solving with that, what you're thinking about improving and what your targets are for improving, and what you would need to improve with these sites for learning outside. And one of us will be in each group to answer questions and lead a debrief at the end. So essentially, individually, we'll be working in breakout rooms to evaluate school grounds, and I'm going to show you how that's going to work. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to click out of this. And then, is everyone seeing the schoolyard assessment? Awesome. So you're going to start in the breakout room by filling out this page here. So you're going to start by looking at your school roof or thinking about your school roof and then drawing it out or recording your observations. And then you're going to answer these different questions. A lot of these questions are, and we're going to send this document in the chat in just a second and you'll get it in your breakout rooms. So a lot of these questions are designed to really only be answered if you're maybe at the school right then or talking to an expert in each of these parts. So it's okay if you don't know the answer to some of these questions or even all of them. The goal throughout this breakout room time is to determine where you would go to find the answers to this question and how you would handle not knowing the answers. So you're going to fill that out first. And then after filling this out individually, that'll take about 10 minutes. You're going to fill out this evaluating the school grounds note-taking tool to basically think through your thoughts together. And I'm going to hand it over to Joanna Snyder now to kind of explain this tool a little more.
Thanks, Alana. So you don't need to worry about this tool really right now. The one nice thing is a lot of what she just went over for what we'll be doing in the breakout time is in that dark blue box there. So a little overview of kind of the agenda for this. This component is right there if you need a reminder. But just like Alana said, you're going to spend that 10 minutes answering the questions you can. If you can't answer it, writing what your plan might be for how you'll get the answer, flagging the ones you're stumped on, and then we will facilitate a conversation where folks will take some time in for each of these questions, and we may only get through a couple based on the conversation in the breakout rooms. Kind of sharing an example of one of the ones we've been that you have a plan for, but you don't have the answer for. So that might help others who are stumped. If anyone's still stumped after that, maybe problem solving as a group, what their plan would be to move forward. So it's just kind of, that's just all debrief after you've had some quiet time. The only thing I'll add, I don't know if you said this, Alana, is while you're in the individual breakout time, feel free, we will be there almost like proctoring independent student time. So feel free to turn down your volume if the conversation is distracting you, or leave it up if you want to hear kind of what other folks are asking Drew or Alana and I during that 10 minutes. And then just keep an eye to check back in and tune back in after 10 minutes for kind of the group conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Joanna, for explaining that. So oh yeah, and then I also want to go over one more thing, is Google Earth before we start. So this is an optional, if you want to look up your school in Google Earth while working on this, if that's maybe helpful to figure out, what the roof looks like or check out observations, you can definitely do that. And so I'm just going to give a brief tutorial on how to use Google Earth. So here you'll see I zoomed in on Mattaponi Elementary School. And I did that by just clicking the search bar and putting the address in and then clicking enter. And then I was able to zoom in and out of it. And I can move around to see different views. So if I want to move and see this part and I want a more aerial view, you can do that. Unfortunately, you're not able, there's no street view, so I can't put myself as a person there. But you can also measure using this measuring tool if you would like, and change the different map style. So that's a brief tutorial on Google Earth. And yeah, are there any questions before we go into breakout rooms? I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now. Feel free to put any questions in the chat, or and Drew, can you send the links to the Google Earth, the schoolyard assessment and note-taking tool? Awesome, thanks. So now everyone has those to use. Okay, if there are no questions, I think that we can go ahead into our breakout rooms now. Joanna, do you have anything to add?
No, you should be able to put yourself in a room. So if you get dropped off the meeting and come back in, you should be able to get back in. But we'll come find you if you have to come back to the main room. Just be patient. We'll come get you.
So can you just give us a minute to get the documents, please?
Definitely, take your time.
Hi, Dory. Do you need to be assigned to a room too? Are you just waiting?
Assigned to a room, please.
Okay. I actually just got bumped out, so I'm waiting for Alana to come back, and I will make sure she puts you. I'll have her put you in room 1 with me.
Oh, I'm in.
Oh, great. Okay, well, I think I fixed my problem.
Oh, are you a co-host again?
No, you still need to do it. My trackpad would not work, but I was like, this will be a problem. I'm going to handle it while they're working.
Oh, no.
So,
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the breakout room real quick.
okay, did you make me a co-host?
You should
Okay,
be-
great. And then do I have, oh, breakout rooms. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Bye.
Bye. Hi.
Hi.
Were you already in a group and got bumped out, or
Yes,
have
I was
you
in
just-
breakout room 3. I just sent the,
Okay.
I actually just sent the chat about that because somebody put me back in there.
Oh, great. Here, I'll assign you to it and you can go back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you get that? Did it work?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope everyone had some great discussion. I know that we were talking up until the very end. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and we can just talk through what we discussed. So is everyone seeing the slide whole group share out? Perfect. Okay. So let's hear from each group now. I guess we can start with group 3. So if you want to just share 3 things or 3 major points that you discussed, feel free. Or even if it's not anything that was in the Google Sheet, just anything that you went over that you want to share.
She's not back yet, but there was another teacher who was looking at about putting a gazebo in their grassy area because they didn't have any shade to go outside. And we were talking about how she would get the money and like who to ask when to get this happening. And I suggested, putting a awning up first because it's probably cheaper, and then writing a grant at Donors Choose. And I don't know what Blue Water Baltimore does either, but or whether they would even sponsor that. But I also suggested trees. They're cheaper. Takes 20 years to mature, but at least you'd be helping your environment.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else from group 3? If not, that's okay. We can go on to group 2. What would you like to share? I guess that's my group, actually. We had a lot of great discussion. If anyone wants to shout out what we talked about.
We talked a little bit about a few people had similar problems with not having control over the facilities that they are in. So in my example, I'm in an elementary school that was originally built in the 50s, renovated in the 90s. Neither time was anyone thinking about environmental issues. So almost all of our storm drain pipes, our rooftop gutter systems go straight into a storm drain. They're like made to go just directly. So all that heat and pollution just goes right into the storm drain without any intervention from plants or even macadam surface. So it's, environmental quality wise, pretty horrible, but that's not going to change because MCPS is not going to pay to have that renovated. So, in general, our school looks great on paper, except for things like that, which do make a huge difference. And it's frustrating when you have green school status and yet your building is causing, undue different types of pollution, and you can't control that. So we talked to some different folks were having similar problems with their facilities, that they are older or, and they can't convert, it's expensive, all these type of issues people run into with making, a learning space as green as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing. That's really interesting to hear. And it was interesting to listen to that discussion in group 2. Anyone else from group 2 want to share what we went over?
I forgot to mention this, but I'm actually located in West Virginia, and I work for a nonprofit that does work with different schools. And one of the things that we struggle with is that West Virginia doesn't have like concrete environmental literacy requirements like Maryland does. So there's some buy-in issues with, not issues, but difficulties with superintendents in schools because they're already busy, and if there's not a requirement, why would they take the extra effort to participate in that? So we're working on trying to figure out how to make MAEOEs more appealing to those teachers, which is, I don't know, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you for sharing.
What's a MAEOE?
Meaningful watershed educational experience. It's
okay.
Sorry, it's really crazy. But it's I think
no, that's so cool. That's all I wanted to know. That's all good.
I'll link you a thing. It's a Bay backpack. I'll link thing in the
I
chat.
think you guys are going to spend a lot of the next session on that too.
Yep,
think
we're
that's
going
the
to be going
focus of next
over everything MAEOE related next week. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And let's go on to group 1. What did you all discuss? Anyone want to share from group 1?
Hi, I think I was in group 1. We just basically had a conversation. Someone mentioned that it was very helpful to hear other concerns because it, helped them to find a better, find better solutions in their schools. But a lot of people are having problems with runoff, of course. And so we talked about rain barrels, the need to have sustainable composting, food and water for animals.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else from group 1?
An interesting thing that someone brought up was this wilding out, that where you allow the whatever plants in the area to just take over, and that would be well, I like the idea. It's nature reclaiming its space, but then again we have the drawback of us not being in control of our space. And as you say, it may be the building supervisors or other outside sources that are responsible for maintenance, and they may not see eye to eye with your dreams.
Huh. That sounds like a really interesting project and idea, but also the cons of that also sound like an interesting thing to consider. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so I'm actually going to hand it over to Joanna now because we're a little bit over time. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and she's going to take over from here.
Yeah, let's see if I can successfully share my screen. Oh, these are. All right, so as I mentioned, a little about my background, I have been working with teachers to take them outside. When I was a classroom teacher in the Boston area, I've taught in several areas, but teaching middle school science, I did kind of stumble into a sit spot project where we picked a spot. We had this lovely forest right next to the school. And out of desperation, I told my students, 8th graders, you just have to stay in your spot. I don't care if you take a nap. You just can't come out. You can't talk to anyone. And we went throughout the year. And so I think the lesson there that I just wanted to start with is simple and small and is great ways to start, especially when you're trying to bring other staff members on board, finding something small and thinking of the collective, not the individual experience. So those amazing field trips that kind of burn everyone out, that's one piece, but these little tiny small things of going out can have real powerful results. So I'll just put that plug there. So I want to share some more resources with you, kind of to dive a little deeper if you want on the things you've already been hearing about today and also in Tuesday's session. So Drew's going to throw a whole bunch of resources into the chat for me on this one. A lot of the work I have done in curriculum with FOSS. So some of you may have FOSS. If you do, definitely reach out to me and I want to work with you directly. But even if you don't teach FOSS as a K-8 science curriculum, or even if you're in high school, a lot of the materials we've developed, I think will be very helpful in a general kind of, we like to talk about the concern-based adoption model. So everybody has their concern that needs to be met before they can kind of try a paradigm shift or something totally new. And so that's what these resources on the right side here, we did an elementary and a middle school chapters of taking FOSS outdoors, but those will work for any place. You do not need to teach FOSS for those. As far as breaking down the main areas. So the areas people have concerns to consider are managing space, managing time, which is very different in K-5, middle school or high school, but very serious challenge. Managing materials, what do you need to have out there? What are you bringing out there? Managing students, what are the ways with behavioral, but also access and equity are big elements there. And then just kind of then getting into some of more resources very similar to what you saw on Tuesday with how you plan those first lessons. So that's what those two chapters offer there on the right there. On the left, the top one I should have said first, the work I ended up doing was because Boston Public Schools had developed all these amazing schoolyards, beautiful renovations, and nobody was using them. And so they came to FOSS and said, you're the science curriculum we have. Can you help us get teachers outside? Because they just don't have time. You know, you all know, you work with teachers or you are a teacher and they are just added to add things. So we revised the curriculum to have, you do this indoors, you do this indoors, you go outside to do this. So that link, that first link there of taking science outdoors can show you some of what was happening in Boston, some great videos of just some very good, easy tips. And those are great to share with other staff that you're trying to kind of bring along. These can be either for you or for those folks as well. Finally here, I just want to put a plug. I am just diving in and just in awe of what Baltimore City Public Schools are pulling together with their outdoor learning. Not only what they're doing, but how they're also documenting it and making it available for folks to see. So I highly recommend looking at the two resources, the bottom there. You can get really lost in these wonderful, in the top right banner, there's that resources tab. There's tons of stuff there. And then they also have this great PDF that's a bit more friendly for what we're going through this year. Oh, rats, did that not work? Interesting. It looks like this, and I just wanted to take a moment and read their equity statement because I think this is really powerful. So they just say, many of our students have long faced barriers that restrict their freedom of movement in outdoor spaces, including barriers rooted in systemic racial inequities, infrastructure, absence of sidewalks and parks, concerns about safety, environmental toxins, and hypervigilance when in public spaces. The time is now to disrupt and dismantle all inequities wherever and whenever city schools has the power to do so. We can intentionally provide students with safe, engaging, and joyful time outside, sometimes even more restricted during the pandemic. Expanded outdoor movement and exploration support students' academic, physical, and mental well-being. Time outdoors also benefits staff, helping to fortify the foundation they provide to our students. So I just found that to be such a beautiful and full statement. You know, the social emotional elements for this coming year are just crucial for students. And there is kind of a great opportunity right now with COVID, especially the concerns with our unvaccinated younger ones, but you know, lots of communities are still grappling with what to do in the fall, that indoors are not as safe as the outdoors, even when you have a lot of students getting vaccinated. So the other resource I wanted to bring to your attention that I've had the pleasure of being part of a little bit is the Green Schoolyards America is a California typically based, but they are a national organization. Early on last year, saw the need to help get kids outside from their work because of the pandemic. This is back when we thought schools were going to be closed for about 2 weeks, right? Remember that? And some of my colleagues at the Lawrence Hall of Science have been involved with developing these resources. And they created this national COVID outdoor learning initiative that is exploding. We don't have time right now, but I just highly recommend diving into this resource. We're going to give you a Google document that I've hyperlinked a lot of the things that have come up today, so you don't have to go find them again from the chat. And so I've given you the overview page here, but also a direct link in that bottom right corner. They've got this template for setting up a school Google sheet for your different spaces. So you design all these, you know, you're thinking already today about your map. So you got space 1 through 8, and then who's using them when, so that they've got a template for you to be able to just copy and kind of make your own. This crazy thing with the orange stumps, they have a virtual augmentation tool. So I haven't used it actually yet, but you put a picture like this. This is someone took this picture. You import it to the tool and you can move around these different classroom configurations to see what fits where. So they've got all these tools. You can even access, there's a way you can request to have a volunteer landscape developer work with you on consultation for your school grounds. So lots of resources. I can't stress enough what they've been involved in. In addition, I'll be giving you guys access directly to, they've got a whole library of, they've been doing bi-weekly presentations. So Oakland Public Schools, Berkeley, a lot of California ones, but the one in the upper right corner, that's Portland, Maine. Recently, we've had also Virginia School has presented. I'm trying to get Baltimore in there because I think they are now the gold standard, in my humble opinion. So lots of great rabbit holes you can go down in there. And then I'll just say, if you're going down these rabbit holes and you're feeling a little lost, I'm gonna put my email address in the chat. Please feel free to email me directly. This is kind of the work I'm also doing volunteer with Montgomery County, especially if you're in Montgomery County. You know, I'm working right now with the district to try to streamline some things to help with the Green Schools program. But yeah, this is kind of my passion right now, my passion side project. So I'd love to be able to help orient anybody to these resources because they're a bit overwhelming. All right, back to you, Alana. I think that was my, did I stop sharing?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joanna, for sharing. That was really great to see. I'm going to share my screen one more time. Okay, is everyone seeing questions? Awesome. So now is the time to ask any questions that you may have on this section, on Joanna's section, on the breakout room part. If you have any questions, feel free to shout them out or put them in the chat.
I have a question.
Go for it.
So what about funding sources to build some type of outdoor classroom space? We currently don't have really anything, and I'm really interested in trying to put together a grant application. So is that a future topic?
That's a good question. Mary, are you still here? You
I am still here, yes.
Awesome.
I just took myself out of mute. So we aren't going to be talking about funding sources, but that is a great question. Sometimes the Chesapeake Bay Trust or Chesapeake Bay Foundation has grants for different outdoor learning. I'm not sure if it covers structures, but you might want to check there.
At the trust, right?
Yeah, at the trust. So I don't know of any right now, but we do post grants on our site when we get notice of them in the resource library. And it's a grants page. So I would check back there periodically. Since this is a hot topic now, I don't know if there will be more grant funding available for building those structures.
We actually had some luck
Yeah.
getting grants from like Lowe's. You know, we'd get like a $2,000 one from Lowe's. We'd get a $1,500 one from Home Depot. You know, like we kind of thought outside the box.
Yeah.
We were putting ours in, and we got them from different corporations that sort of are in that sort of world. And we were able to get, you know, piece together enough stuff plus our PTA money to, you know, revamp the whole garden. So you might look at some sources that are, you know, more businesses that might, you know, get you some money that way.
And Missy, you just mentioned another one. Do you want to, I'll let you talk about that one because that's a good one.
I can't spell. Oh, I just did that. I'm sorry. Delete my message. Oops. Oh, I wanted to ask, I'm sorry. So does Home Depot or Amazon have any I couldn't spell, philanthropic like tabs on their website that you could put a query into?
You're better off going to your local one. rather than going through corporate. If you go to your local one and tell them you're the school down the street, they're a lot more likely to give you money than if you go through corporate. And many of those big box stores are very willing to give money. But a place that's really great is Earth Force. If you're not familiar with them, I highly recommend you check out their website. They give easy grants. So one of the biggest problems for teachers is, you know, having to write that grant and go through that whole process because you have such a short amount of time that you're with students in your school year, that many of these grants, including CBF, they're great, but they're hard to get for teachers because your window is so much smaller than other places. So because of that, Earth Force specifically designs their grants for teachers in mind and for one school year in mind. One of their big driving factors is that you have kids help do your projects though. They want kids involved in it. And this goes in along with the MAEOE, which you'll learn more about, but they're very involved in student-driven projects that are helping their grounds. So that's one of the factors. But other than that, their grants are super easy to write and super easy to get. They're begging teachers to apply to give money to you for this specific thing. So I highly recommend checking them out.
Thanks, Missy. I totally forgot because we've been working with Earth Force and I think they might have a funding. I will put the link. There is some information. I'm going to put that link right now into the link that we're putting for resources.
I also saw Victoria left a comment. This is really, really helpful. It's very important to make sure everyone at the school knows when these projects are happening to avoid new trees getting cut down. We also had one more question in the chat. Are any of these schools green ribbon or aspiring to be?
Yes, we are. We're a Maryland Green School certified through MAEOE, and we just received national green ribbon status last year. So if anybody's interested in that process, I'm happy to talk about it or email with you about it. It's more extensive than the MAEOE, but everything's very similar. So it's easy to kind of move between the two.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So we have about 5 more minutes, so we have time for a couple more questions. Is there anything else before we keep going? Okay, if not, well, we can finish up with our final poll. So we're going to launch the same poll question that we did at the beginning. So that's, do you feel confident in evaluating your school grounds for outdoor learning spaces? Drew, can you launch the poll whenever you're ready?
The poll is not changing for me. It's like not allowing me to change the poll.
Oh,
so
okay.
We should go back to the comment format. A
That
for
sounds good.
yes, B for no.
That sounds good. Okay, so I'll put in the poll question into the chat, and then just like what Drew said, put in your responses. Lots of A's. That's always great to see. Good. I'm glad that after today, most people feel confident in evaluating their school grounds. Oh, glad to see you like the evaluation paper. Awesome. Okay, great. Seems like overall we have A's. So this is good. I feel like at the beginning we had like a 50-50, and now I'm seeing mainly people are confident. Awesome.
Can I just share one thing about the assessment that we did is wonderful. If you want something that's a little more involved that your kids can do, we've done the schoolyard report card before. I mean, we do it almost every year with our 4th graders. We've changed our science curriculum a little bit, but that's real involved, and it looks at tons of different things, and then the kids have to measure and put that all together. And they just loved being part of that because then, it's submitted for real data and they felt like real scientists, and it was just, it's a positive experience all the way around. So Just want to throw that out there as an additional part to that assessment.
That sounds awesome. Can you share some of that information in the chat so that we have it after?
Yeah, let me, I'll see if I can find, find that while on the fly here and find a
Okay,
website.
great. Thank you.
And I
All
just
right.
put
Oh.
in, I'm sorry, Alana, I just put in the Earth Force grant. I believe it is due on June 10th, but there is a Google form and it's for $200 and it will support services such as buses, professional landscapers, not just materials. So you might want to check that out if you're looking for funding. It's due in the next 7 days. I think it's a pretty short and sweet application, but they're trying to give away money, as Missy said, so apply.
Will they do that again next year?
They are pretty consistent with their funding, so definitely keep an eye on that. Yeah, I don't know if they will or not, but we'll let you know. We'll keep it in that grants page, but this one just came into my inbox and
Can you forward
today.
that because it's not opening?
The Google form?
The Google form is not opening.
Let me see.
Submit your proposal link. Doesn't open.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, I'm just gonna put it in as this here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because I just got this in my inbox today. Try it now because it's opening on my computer.
Yes, it opened
Okay.
now.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
probably missed a copy and paste there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary, for sharing. So I'm going to go on to our final slide. We have 2 more sessions coming up. Integrating MAEOE is on June 8th, and planning and implementing will be our last training on June 10th. And we hope that you'll be able to join us or watch the recordings if you're not able to join. And Drew just put the links to register in the chat. Awesome. So we have 2 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if we have any other questions from anyone, we can take this time to talk or answer them.
A quick question. Where can we find that aggregated resource list that was mentioned earlier?
That is going to be posted with the recording in that page. So all of those all the recording, all the resources, and that link page. And that is Drew's job today. This is one of his first, second, third days to get that posted up today or tomorrow. So
I put the school report card in. It's CBF published, created it, and we used that, and then we added some other things from other curriculums to it. So I put the link in there if people want to see that.
Thank you, Sarah. So we can stick around for the next few minutes if anyone has any questions, but if not, I think we're good for today. So thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you on June 8th, hopefully.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joanna, for joining us too, covering well.